Lectures on the governing principles of ancient China, the essence of making friends. Making friends is a great art. There is a lot of discussion on it in classics, including the Book of Odes, the Analects, and the Book of Changes, Zhou Yi. The ancient sages were of the view that one would be very fortunate to be able to have intimate friends who can act as our teachers and give us correct guidance. Such friends could bring endless benefits to us. On the other hand, if we make the wrong friends, our lives could be completely ruined by them. Ancient sages told us that the way to make friends is by communicating with our sincere heart, and that the selected friends should be benevolent and virtuous. In Sun Qin, compiled in the governing principles of ancient China, it is said, "Although a man has a good nature and high intelligence, still he shall seek virtuous teachers to follow and virtuous friends to associate with." Professor Zhou Yi from the Department of Philosophy at the Party School of Central Committee of CPC is going to bring us her interpretation of the governing principles of ancient China on making friends. Here is lectures on the governing principles of ancient China, the essence of making friends. Professor Zhou Yi graduated with a bachelor's and master's degree in philosophy from Renmin University of China. She is currently a professor at the Department of Philosophy at the Party School of Central Committee of CPC and a mentor for doctoral students majoring in ethics. She is also a visiting professor at Tsinghua College, Sun Yat-sen University. Professor Zhou Yi has published many academic papers, received a PhD from the University of Hull, UK, and is a postdoctoral scholar at the National University of Singapore. She has been invited to give lectures and participate in workshop seminars in the UK, Italy, the USA, Canada, Australia, Japan, Singapore, and Indonesia. In 2015, 2016 and 2017, she was invited to UNESCO headquarters in Paris to give talks based on the governing principles of ancient China. The central theme of her talks was the importance of the sage's education. In other words, learning from the wisdom of the past and also how to promote moral education. She has contributed greatly towards the dissemination of Oriental culture in the Western world. This video was edited by the Governing Principles of Ancient China translation team of the Pure Land Learning College Association and is based on the lectures by Professor Zhou Yi.
Dear friends, greetings to you all. Today we continue our study of the governing principles of ancient China with today's topic, which is the essence of making friends. We all have friends and may still make friends every day. However, when facing people, have we thought about whom we shall choose to make as friends? In the Analects, compiled in the governing principles of ancient China, Confucius said, "We should avoid making friends who have different qualities than us." For example, if one person's values are benevolence, righteousness, loyalty, and forgiveness, while the other one's value is only selfishness, we have different qualities and should not be friends. When we read the governing principles of ancient China, we find being close to virtuous people is an emphasised topic throughout the compilation. For example, in Sun Qin, compiled in the governing principles of ancient China, there is a good statement. It is said, "Although a man has a good nature and high intelligence, still he shall seek virtuous teachers to follow and virtuous friends to associate with." Why are virtuous teachers and virtuous friends important to us? Because they can help us succeed. In Sun Qin, it is said, "From virtuous teachers one can learn the way of the sage kings, like Yao, Shun, Yu, and Tang. Confucius is one of the good examples. Why has Confucius been so highly admired in the world for 2,000 years? Because what he learned was from the sage kings Yao, Shan, Yu, Tang, Wen, and Wu, and the Duke of Zhou. These ancient sages were who Confucius admired most. Confucius once said, "I am only a transmitter of ancient sages' wisdom and not a maker. I trust and love their teachings." Because Confucius regarded ancient sages as his teachers, he became one of the greatest teachers in the world and has been admired by later generations for 2,000 years. Next, in Sun Qing Zi, it is said, "From virtuous friends one can see the conducts of loyalty, trustworthiness, respect, and humility. Finally, what is the result of having virtuous teachers and virtuous friends? It is said, one will make progress in one's virtues, like benevolence and righteousness, without awareness. This is transforming through unconscious influence." By studying this, what should we do in our daily life? We should seek virtuous teachers and virtuous friends as well. Where are they? They are in the classics, like the governing principles of ancient China, which is full of sages' teachings. By studying it, we feel like we are personally receiving teachings from Confucius, Mencius, and other sages. Also, we can learn how their disciples practiced the wisdom they learned from their teachers. By doing this, our virtues will improve naturally and unconsciously. On the other hand, if we do not study the classics but are addicted to the internet, we may be influenced unconsciously as well. In today's world, we are overwhelmed with information from the internet, which is predominantly negative. When such information conveys speech or thoughts of evil, poor taste, selfishness, and deception, we will definitely be influenced without being aware. Therefore, choosing to make the right friends is of great importance.
Living in this world, most people need friends. By quoting the text from Sun Qing Zi and other classics, Professor Yuli Liu explained that it is our teachers and friends who are the supporting cast in our self-cultivation, study and career. So it is very important that we wisely and cautiously choose our teachers and friends. Professor Liu further explained the teachings of Confucius and Sun Qing Zi by saying that when choosing teachers or friends, we should only select virtuous ones, as virtuous teachers will teach virtue, and so will virtuous friends. On the contrary, evil teachers and friends could lead you to an unfavourable or even very bad situation. The Chinese have a saying that things may be stained red when next to vermilion, and stained black when next to ink. The same theory can be applied to people's interactions. How did the Chinese of the past make friends based on virtuous moral qualities? Let us continue with lectures on the governing principles of ancient China, the essence of making friends.
It is recorded in the governing principles of ancient China that during the spring and autumn period in the state of Chu, there was a person who was good at predicting people's fates and fortunes by face reading. He was very accurate. Upon hearing this, the king of the state of Chu summoned this person to the court. The king said, "I heard that you are good at face reading and you have been very accurate. Is it true?" The person replied, "Not that I am good at reading faces. I am only good at observing the friends a person makes. By doing so, I can predict this person's future. Take an example of an ordinary person. If this person's friends are filial to parents, respect siblings, honest, cautious and law-abiding, then such a person will see his or her family and personal situations improving day by day. Such a person is regarded as an auspicious person. He continued, "If I see an official whose friends are all honest, trustworthy, virtuous, and practicing good deeds, then I can predict this official will improve his or her services and continually receive promotions. Such a person is called an auspicious official. If I see a king of a country whose most ministers are virtuous and close ministers are loyal and dare to forward suggestions against the king's mistakes, then this king will continually bring peace to the country and win the hearts and the respect of the people. Such a king will be regarded as an auspicious king." After saying that, he emphasised again, "I am not a person good at face reading, but just at observing the friends one makes. One's success and fate can be predicted by observing the quality of one's friends." From this record in the governing principles of ancient China, we can understand that being close to virtuous friends can have a great positive impact on our lives. In our society nowadays, we sometimes hear on the news that such and such high government officials were caught due to corruption. In their repentance letters, and often appearing phrase is, "I was not cautious in making friends." There have been many examples of government officials' corruption and downfalls because of the bad influences of wrong friends. The wrong choice of friends cost them gravely. Their fate went downhill from there. A vivid and reasonable metaphor is that the briber is like a fisherman. The bribe is like the bait, and the person who is bribed is like the fish. The fish can't resist the temptation of the bait and eventually dies at the fisherman's hands. There are too many temptations and traps in our society nowadays. When faced with such material benefits, we should keep in mind that the best relationships between associates are as plain as water, and there should be proper conduct between government officials and business people. They should respect each other with proper distance and refrain from socialising too much. A clear line must be drawn between private matters and official matters. Even government officials who exercise strong self-discipline should be careful about the friends they make. There is a saying, "When one talks frequently near a riverbank, one's shoes can easily get wet." This is to say that in the company of your friends, they'd influence you without your awareness. In the school sayings of Confucius, compiled in the governing principles of ancient China, we can find a story of Confucius who was full of wisdom and vision. One day Confucius said, "After I die, Zhi Xia's virtue will increase day by day, while Zhi Gong's virtue will decrease day by day." Upon hearing these words, Zhen Zi was very surprised. He asked Confucius, "Master, why did you say this? How can you predict the rising or falling of a person's virtue?" Confucius replied, "Zhi Xia likes being with people who have more virtue than him. Zhi Gong, on the other hand, likes being with people who are not as good as him and always feels very good when praised." Therefore, Confucius concluded how to predict a person's virtue by observing the people around that person. Confucius said, "If you do not understand a son, just observe his father, and you will find the answer. If you do not understand a person, just observe this person's friends. If you do not understand a leader, just observe this leader's subordinates." Confucius further concluded, "To be with kind people is like being in a fragrant orchid house. The longer you are there, the less you'll notice the fragrance, as if we have become part of the fragrance. To be with an unkind person is like being in a shop selling salted fish. The longer you are there, the less you'll notice the smell, as if we have become part of the smell. Therefore, a noble person must choose carefully whom he befriends. I read a statement of a corrupt government official telling us the importance of choosing friends. It said, "Different friends will make you have a different lifestyle that will lead to a different destiny. Making friends looks like a small thing, but actually it is crucial. Good friends can help you out of trouble, while bad ones can make you sink further into your existing bad habits, cultivate your evil aspect of humility, and even walk you into a crime abyss." This statement is a belated repentance of a corrupt official, but shows us the truth in making friends. It can serve as a good reminder for everyone, especially those leaders in power facing the temptation of fame and gain. They may be influenced by wrong friends and forsake their good judgment. In the end, they may get themselves into deep trouble and may not be able to find a way out. Their careers, even their lives, could begin to go down a path of no return. Therefore, it is of great importance that we only associate with kind and virtuous friends. They will help us improve our virtue and our cultivation.
In the last section, by quoting the governing principles of ancient China, Professor Yuli Liu told us a story in which a face reader was able to predict one's success by observing one's friends, and a story of how Confucius was able to predict the rising or falling in virtue of his two students. Professor Liu provided good examples of the same, which implies the truth of making friends. Things may be stained red when next to vermilion, and stained black when next to ink. In the Book of Changes, compiled in the governing principles of ancient China, it is said, "Similar sounds resonate well with one another. Creatures of similar natures attract one another. Our friends define us. If our friends are virtuous and full of positive energy, we will most likely achieve much in our pursuit of virtue. On the contrary, if our friends are evil and full of negativity, we can be affected and stained by their bad habits. So it is with leaders. Therefore, our circle of friends is very important and must be managed well." Let us continue with lectures of the governing principles of ancient China, the essence of making friends.
So how should we interact with friends and have long-lasting friendships? We must make friends based on the Tao. Ancient people told us 4 famous sayings. First, those who make friends based on benefits will see the end of their friendship when the benefits end. The friendship based on benefit is common in today's society. When there are benefits to be gained, people would still be together. They can build up their relationship and have a drink together. When there are no benefits to be gained anymore, the friendship will drown. The second saying is, those who make friends based on power will see the end of their friendship when the power fades. This friendship can be seen between government officials and ordinary people. When a leader is in power, he or she always has a lot of friends around asking for favours. The leader may also choose to help those who had brought along presents. However, once this leader is no longer in power, no one will come and renew their relationship. The third saying is, those who make friends based on physical appearance will see the end of their love when they become old. Youth cannot last forever. We will all grow old and have wrinkles begin to appear on our face. If our love is merely based on our young and beautiful appearance, we will lose our love when we get old. Therefore, the friendship based on benefit, power, and physical appearance won't last long. What should we do? The fourth saying provides the answer. Those who make friends based on Tao will have their friendship last forever. Tao is moral obligation, gratitude, and true love. They are the key points in making friendships last a long time. After we understand that real friendship should be based on Tao, how can we attract friends who possess moral obligation, gratitude, and true love? In the Book of Changes, compiled in the Governing Principles of Ancient China, it is said, "Things and living beings with similar natures will come close and form a group. This is natural. When we want to make friends with virtuous people, firstly, we need to cultivate ourselves and become a virtuous person. Once we possess moral obligation, gratitude, and true love, we will naturally attract people with the same qualities as us." Regarding the moral obligation in friends, the most prominent quality is trustworthiness. One must not betray one's friends and must be trustworthy. The ancient Chinese have provided great examples. Over 2,000 years ago in the Han Dynasty, there were two scholars, Zhang Xiao and Fan Shi. They were good friends and studied together at the Imperial Academy. Then they finished studying and were about to go back to their respective hometowns. On departure, they made a promise that Fan Shi would visit Zhang's house in exactly 2 years' time. 2 years later, on this exact day, Zhang told his mother, "Please arrange a good feast today as my friend Fan Shi will be visiting." Zhang's mother was not sure Fan would come, as that was a promise made 2 years ago, and Fan Shi's home was over 1,000 miles away from her home. It is well known that over 2,000 years ago, the transport was not convenient and people might walk several months for such a distance. Would Fan Shi make such a huge effort to see his friend? Zhang was very sure and said to his mother, "My friend Fan is a very trustworthy friend. If he makes a promise, he'll definitely honour it." The mother was convinced and started to prepare a big feast. Fan really showed up as he had promised 2 years ago. The friendship between the two of them was based on trust and honesty. As a result, their friendship was strengthened and praised by later generations. There are many such stories in China's history which tell us about the virtues of trust and honesty as the keys to friendship. About 2,500 years ago, during the Warring States period, Jia was a prince in the state of Wu. One day he was on a diplomatic mission to visit the state of Lu. Along the way he stopped at the state of Shu. He was offered a meal by the king of Shu. Jia noticed that the king liked Jia's sword very much, but it was a symbol of Jia's mission and so he could not part with it at the time. However, in his mind he decided to present his sword to the king one day. After completing his diplomatic mission, he went back to the state of Shu to present this sword to the king of Shu. It was there that he learnt the king had passed away. Jia went to the tomb of the king and hung the sword on a tree in front of the tomb. A member of his entourage said, "Prince Jia, you didn't promise the sword to the king when you met him. Now that he has passed away, you don't have to honour your unspoken words." Jia responded, "I made that promise in my mind. Even though the king has passed away, I must not forget my promise." Such was the level of trust and honesty of the people of the past.
After explaining the importance of making friends with virtuous people, Professor Yuli Liu raised another important element. How should friends behave so that their friendship could be long-lasting? Professor Liu quoted 4 famous sayings worth remembering. Those who make friends based on benefits will see the end of their friendship when the benefits end. Those who make friends based on power will see the end of their friendship when the power fades. Those who make friends based on appearance will see the end of their love when they become old. Those who make friends based on Tao will have their friendship last forever. What exactly is the Tao of making friends? Tao is moral obligation, gratitude, true love, and trustworthiness. Long-lasting friendship should not be established on the expectation of benefits, nor for some empty promises made after drinking wine. Professor Liu further provided 2 examples from the historical records of Shang Xiao and Fan She from the Han Dynasty, and Prince Ji Jia, who honoured his unspoken promise and insisted on presenting his sword to the king of Shu even after his death. As it is said in the Book of Changes, things and living beings with similar natures will come close and form a group. What other perspectives are there in making friends who are virtuous? Let us continue with lectures on the governing principles of ancient China, the essence of making friends.
In the Analects compiled in the governing principles of ancient China, we read, "If a king does not neglect his old friends, then his people will not be unkind and indifferent to each other." In other words, if a leader of a country wants his or her people to be kind and caring, the leader must first respect and not neglect his or her old friends, old ministers, and old relatives. In the Book of Rites, we can find a record in the chapter of Tan Gong. Yuan Rong, an old friend of Confucius, was a student of a different school of thought. When Yuan's mother passed away, Confucius presented a coffin. Yuan jumped on the coffin and sang. Such actions were severely against the general propriety. Confucius's students complained and said, "Master, let's not befriend Yuan any longer." How did Confucius respond? He said, "Relatives should not lose their duties to be relatives, and old friends should not lose their obligations to be old friends." What does this mean? Confucius believed Yuan standing on his mother's coffin and singing was to express his filial love to his mother in a very different way, a way that is suitable to him, yet not accepted by others. So Yuan did not forget his duty to his mother. Given that, Confucius must not forget his obligation to an old friend and terminate the friendship with him only because of his seemingly odd behaviour. If we all learn and practice the teaching from sages and saints about how to interact with others who are different from us, our society will become increasingly kind and honest. Those leaders who can practice this will set a good example for their people in the creation of a warm and harmonious society. In February 2012, Xi Jinping, the then Vice Chairman of China, went on an official visit to the United States. He made arrangements during his free time to visit some old friends who had received him 27 years ago in Muscatine, Iowa. He caught up with them and had tea and talked about the old times. This visit had been regarded as his official visit's most heartwarming highlight. With his busy schedule at work, Xi Jinping still took time to visit the old friends who had welcomed him 27 years ago. He certainly didn't forget them. He has also set a great example to all, and the people will also learn from him and maintain the kind and honest nature in them. Not forgetting old friends is not only Mr. Xi Jinping's personal value, but also one of the key traditions in China for thousands of years. There are many great teachings in ancient classics. For example, in the Book of Odes, which is the oldest compilation of poems in China, there is a poem about not forgetting old friends, compiled in the governing principles of ancient China. This poem is from the chapter Zhou Yi and entitled Logging. It is said, "The choking sound of timbers goes ding ding, and a bird's cry goes ying ying. The bird comes out of the deep valley and removes to a lofty tree. Although on the big tree, it is still crying ying ying and seeking its old friends for companionship. When even birds know to seek with its voice its old companions, shouldn't we human beings also seek to have the companionship of our old friends? This poem tells us if even a bird finding a higher and better tree knows not to forget its old friends and still calls them to share this big tree, why can't we, as human beings, remember old friends as well? Therefore, no matter how high of a position we have, we must not forget our old friends. We should work together for a beautiful future.
Professor Yuli Liu is of the view that to make virtuous friends we must not only emphasise moral obligation and trustworthiness, but also gratitude. Gratitude is the true love to our old friends and not forgetting them, no matter how rich or how poor they are. There is a saying in China that for clothing we prefer new ones, and for friends we prefer old ones. In a modern song, it is also sung, when we make new friends, we must not forget old friends. If new friends may be regarded as beautiful scenery in our trip of life, old friends would be the great support pillars in our life. By quoting the Analects, the Book of Rites, and the Book of Odes, Professor Liu helped us further understand how ancient people emphasised and valued their old friendships. Further, Professor Liu talked about Chairman Xi Jinping's visit after 27 years to his old friends in the United States. This story shows that Chairman Xi knows full well the Tao of making friends, which are moral obligation, trustworthiness, and gratitude. Such qualities stem from the great vitality and charm of traditional Chinese values.
In the Book of Odes, compiled in the Governing Principles of Ancient China, there is another poem about friends worth reading. It was to blame the king, Zhou of Zhou dynasty, who did not value his old friends, and then made the atmosphere of the society unkind and indifferent. In the poem it is said, "Formerly in fear and dread, only I stayed with you. Now in comfort and happiness, I was abandoned by you. You forgot my great help and kindness, and only remember our small unhappiness." This poem reminds us that to keep a friendship, we need to remember the kindness of others and forget the unhappiness between us. Although our friend did 99 bad things and only one good thing to us, we should still keep that one good thing in mind and be grateful to the friend. This is the correct attitude for a long-lasting friendship. This is the end of today's talk. Thank you very much.